This is Baxter Colburn, host of Verse of the Day. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
I'm Selena Yvette, and this is Stories from Planet Earth. All right, so we're here with Taylor.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being willing to meet up with me at the library. And
Thanks for having me.
yeah. So just start off telling us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm a proud Colorado native. Not many of those anymore. I grew up in southern Colorado Springs in the Security Widefield area. But I grew up with divorced parents, so I'd spend my week in the city and then my weekends out in Callahan, Colorado, far out east. So I kind of had different landscapes to grow up in, which was really nice. Now I am in college. I'm studying environment and sustainability at Western Colorado University. And I'm about to graduate in May, so I'm really, really looking forward to that.
Yeah, how long have you been in college?
It's been 4 years, just
Okay.
about, and I've jumped around a lot, but I will get my degree from Western.
Nice. Yeah, I actually almost went to Western.
Really?
Yeah, I was thinking about it for a while.
It's definitely a very good school.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about what you're studying there and just your experience going to college at Western.
Okay, well, I came to Western Colorado University after starting first at Pikes Peak Community College because I really didn't want to go to college, but my friends talked me into it after I saw that they were having such a great experience. So I was like, okay, I'm not doing anything else with my life. I should maybe get an education. So I transferred in my sophomore year to Western, and I immediately decided that I'd be studying environment and sustainability. That became very important to me. After I graduated high school, I kind of discovered that that's what I was passionate about. And since then, I spent a year there, and then I took advantage of the National Student Exchange program, and I spent a year in New Orleans studying there, and now I'm back for my senior year. So I have taken advantage of school and jumped around a little bit, but Western's really great. It's surrounded by 80% protected lands, so it's a very great place if you love the outdoors. If you don't, maybe consider going somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm sure you get snowed in a lot there, huh?
Oh, yeah. It's the coldest on average city in the lower 48.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
constant negative temperatures and lots of snow.
Yeah, and what city is it in again?
Gunnison.
Gunnison, okay. Yeah, I've never actually been to Gunnison, so it is pretty isolated within the mountains, correct?
Yeah, it's what I would call like the countryside of the mountains. It's in a valley, and that's what actually allows it to be so cold because a lot of clouds sit there. It's very magical, especially in the summertime. It's not far from Crested Butte, which is Colorado's wildflower capital. So in July, go up there, and it'll be a wonderland.
Yeah, I definitely have to make it out to that part of the state. It's crazy. You can live in Colorado your whole life, and there's still something that you haven't seen.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It does offer a lot. I do love Colorado.
Yeah, it's a wonderful state. So tell me a little bit about your major. What exactly is it?
Environment and sustainability, so it really focuses on the social aspect. When I first dedicated myself to this degree, I thought it would be more hard science, but it's actually more of a social science. So you're looking at how people interact with the environment, what do they think about it, how do they act within it, what's our impact upon it, how can we use technology that's going to be able to sustain future populations. That's really what it's about. Everyone thinks that I'm some crazy radical hippie when I tell them that this is what I'm studying. They don't really understand what it is, but really if you boil it down, it's just we're trying to make sure that there's resources for future generations for a habitable Earth.
Yeah, and that is definitely a noble, much needed field right now.
It's scary how much it's needed and how little people really understand the severity of the issue.
Yeah, definitely. I think it can be a little bit overwhelming, probably more so for you, because I feel overwhelmed and I am not completely educated in that sphere of things, so I could only imagine studying it.
Yeah, it's
and you get
disheartening.
in the nitty-gritty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really rough, but also so important.
Yeah, it definitely does get disheartening, but the way that I push through it is the best way to get through something is action. It's no excuse to just roll over and quit. If you want to make a difference and keep these things from becoming worse, you have to do something about it. So it is empowering at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of your favorite courses you've taken around environmentalism?
I just took a class called Environmental Ethics, which was really mind-opening, especially because we talked about people's connection to nature within urban settings and how people can still connect with nature even if they live in the quote-unquote urban concrete jungle. So that was really interesting, and just delving more into ecofeminism and environmental racism and those types of things. So big topics that are really important to talk about. Also, I took environmental economics, which was really interesting because it's so easy to look at corporations and be so mad that they're making these decisions that are so terrible for the earth, polluting our waterways as an example. But money does drive our world in the West, especially. So I understand more why companies make the decisions they make. So that was a really eye-opening class for me, too.
That's interesting because I think over the past few interviews I've had with other people this month, we've talked about big companies and how they're kind of the ones that need to step up a little bit. But it's hard because there are a lot of little intricacies that go along with running a business on that scale. And I think that that's something that people should probably learn a little bit more about too. So what exactly are those challenges to bigger businesses to making the switch to more sustainable decisions?
A lot of companies, just in what I've learned, there could definitely be more, but what I've learned a lot is upfront cost. So people really, especially companies or maybe people in their personal lives, might be really off-put by the initial cost of more sustainable, eco-friendly options. But when it boils down to it, after your investment is made, over time you really are getting money back. You are saving a lot more money. It's a lot more efficient. It makes a lot more sense for people and companies to make that upfront investment. So in the future, not only they're going to be healthier, their environment's going to be cleaner, but they're going to be saving money. And I always think that if you can't really get people to understand the environmental impact, talk about how it's going to affect their wallet, and they might understand.
Yeah, that is a really good point. Money does talk, and unfortunately, it is a huge part of how our world works.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Let's touch back on environmental ethics. What is something you've learned through that?
I have learned a lot about how people interact with the environment and a lot about how to communicate about the environment with others. And it's so easy to just talk statistics. Oh, this is what this graph means. Oh, our CO2 levels are the highest they've ever been. But people don't understand, and it's really easy to dip into the scary parts of it. But you also need to talk about the positive, improvements that we're making. And really uplift people with that, let them know that it's not all just scare tactics, which is how I got into this field of studying because I was so scared. So I try to take action, but a lot of people, that puts them in a rut. So we definitely need to bring positive stories out and let people know that changes are being made and they are positive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's another really important facet because it can be so easy to get overwhelmed by all of the negative news and just the sheer volume of the problems we're facing right now.
Yeah, it's a heavy weight.
Yeah, it's a heavy burden to carry, and especially when you feel like a lot of people aren't making those changes in their own lives. So
yeah, it's easy for me to feel that angry sometimes, why are people doing this? It's really a lot of misinformation, but also it's an economic thing too. People who are worried about putting a meal on their table aren't going to be worried about if this plate is styrofoam or if this fork is plastic. They can't afford to think like that, and I don't understand it personally because I haven't been in that situation, but I can see where they're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not something that...
It's a luxury.
It's
to think that way.
It's not easily accessible. This shift isn't easy to make unless you have money, like we said before. And...
Or just even, like, the privilege of safety, those types of things, so...
And even just having access to stores that have products that are eco-friendly.
Very true, very true. It's hard to find some of them, but Colorado Springs is getting better about that, so I really appreciate that. And the companies that I do find that offer, like, glass containers that you can bring back to the store, like Pikes Peak Lemonade. I love that place.
That place is great.
This is not an ad, by the way, but you can bring back your glass and you get like $3 off your next cup, something like a great savings, and you get a reasonable cup that's pretty cute, and you get delicious lemonade. So
yeah, win-win.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about the beginning of your journey in sustainability and environmentalism and what triggered you to go into this field of study.
Okay, great. Well, growing up, I did not have a strong connection with my surrounding environment. Like, I would hear tourists come into Colorado Springs, oh, the mountains are so pretty. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're rocks. They look the same every day.
Yeah.
Even growing up with Pikes Peak right outside of my bedroom window, I didn't really value it. But during my high school years, I started enjoying my time outside more. And when I'd go out into the countryside on the weekends, my stepmom would really, like, spent a lot of time with me outside. We had a little pond on our land. We had 40 acres, and I would wake up early and watch the sunrise, and it was just pure magic. So that's really where, along with my stepmom's guidance, I really started to value life itself, but also the earth, which has given us life, right? So that's where it started. And then even still, I don't think I found my passion until after I graduated high school, and I was not eager to go back to school. I love learning, but school's way too stressful. And I took a gap year after a ton of fundraising, like 2 years of fundraising, constant work with me and my whole family involved. And I was able to go to Fiji and volunteer as a first grade teacher. And being with them, it's so cheesy to say, and it really did change my life. And seeing how my host dad, Epi, he just passed away, so rest in peace. He really changed my life. It's so emotional. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, don't apologize.
But he really changed my life. He had a little garden outside of our house, like a very humble house, and he grew cassava and cabbage. Cabbage was the big seller on the island because he was like one of the few people who grew it. And I just saw how that really brought the community together, but also that they were able to rely on the land to support themselves, and he was able to support other people, and people all connect through food over there. That's a huge thing. They would always say, like, come eat, and invite you inside their house, and that really was like, oh my gosh, wow, you can really, it's so empowering to be able to grow your own food and share that with others. So that's really where I discovered my passion for the environment.
Yeah, through food. That's so interesting, because the first person I interviewed was also another person that kind of found their love for the earth through growing their own food. So it's funny. It echoes every person I talk to. We all have these common connections with the earth, where it does provide us with life. And
it's a necessity, and you really connect to where that comes from. Just earth is life-giving, and it's sad that so many people don't realize that we can't live without it. Yeah.
That's such a wonderful experience that you got to go to Fiji. I actually
really
forgot about that. I remember seeing that on Instagram. That's so amazing.
Yeah, it was really special, and they're still really special to me today.
Yeah. Do you think you'll ever go back and visit?
I did get to go back and visit. I have a namesake there in Fiji, so I went back for his second birthday, and that was really special, but that was in 2017. It's 2020 now. I haven't been back, but maybe if I get married one day, I would definitely want whoever I marry to meet them, because they are a huge part of my life.
Yeah, that's really amazing. In that same vein, let's kind of talk about your other travels. You went to New Orleans for a little bit.
Yes, that was one of the best things I've ever done in my life. Really eye-opening it was the first time I was a minority in an area, which I think everybody should be in that position, just to really reflect on their privileges. So that was really a humbling experience. And also because it is in the southern states of America, you know, I often feel like the government has kind of left behind people down there, and there's a lot less funding. So it's definitely not as eco-friendly as I was used to growing up in Colorado. Being there for Mardi Gras was a huge eye-opener.
Yeah.
Seeing all the trash piled up on the streets, and they do pay people to come and sweep it up, but there's still like penny beads like falling down the drains and things like that. So littering, I saw that a lot down there, which is not something that I was accustomed to. There's trash all over the place. So it did break my heart a little bit.
Yeah. What brought you down there?
Well, I had been talking to my roommate, and we were just like, oh, maybe we could go visit there. And then I found out about National Student Exchange, which was a great opportunity. Look into it. People in college listening to this, it's great. But I was like, wow, I'm really sick of the Gunnison cold, you know. It's not diverse at all up in Gunnison, and that is a struggle for me because you don't get a lot of inputs, like cultural thoughts, and I was feeling pigeonholed up there. So I needed to go to a place with a lot of different people, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different ideas. I needed that input. And New Orleans is very diverse. There's a strong culture there. When you're in New Orleans, it's like nowhere else in the world. I love it there so much. I didn't think as a mountain girl I could ever fall in love with the city, but I think I really found my place down there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've only been to New Orleans once, but it is such an interesting city.
Gosh.
So much deep-rooted history.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of it isn't the most positive, you know.
Yes, unfortunately.
It's not uplifting history, but it's good to acknowledge that too.
Yeah. It's a resilient city.
Oh my gosh. Most resilient people I know in my entire life. Constantly. It's not easy to live down there. Between the economic struggles, the environmental struggles, they are in one of the most vulnerable places in all of America. And somehow they're still smiling. There's always a reason to celebrate there. People are always in a good mood. People are so outgoing. They want to get to know you. They want to share food with you. Those are my type of people. I love New Orleanians for sure.
Is it true that you can rent out a parade for yourself?
You can. They looked into it, but it's time consuming, so.
Yeah, right. Hard to organize and such a thing.
It was my first Mardi Gras. I wanted to experience it, not try to put my idea and spin on it, you know?
Right, yeah. So there are so many environmental issues we're facing. How do you pin down what to focus on?
It's really hard, and the more I learn, the more I hear from people. You can't blame the consumer. It's really the companies that need to be making the difference or making the change. And I'm not arguing with that. But we're all in this together. We're all a team. We all belong to this global community. So if the companies aren't going to make the change, vote with your dollar. That's what I choose to do, which obviously is a privilege. Not all people can do that, and not all people understand what that means. But really, if you can, do the research on the companies that you are supporting and see if you support where their money is going to. An app I really love is called Boycott, and you can get it on any smartphone. And you'll go to the grocery store, you'll scan the barcode, and you can sign up for campaigns. Like, if you don't want to support child slave labor, you can say, I don't support that, and then you'll scan a barcode, and it'll let you know if the company uses, like, child laborers.
Wow, that's amazing. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I spend way too long in the grocery store seeing if I agree with this company or not. Yeah. But there's been many switches I've made just because of that. Like, I can't support Yoplait anymore because they support palm oil and deforestation, so I can't do Yoplait anymore. But, you know, every personal decision that you make to really think about your environmental impact, and of course there's always going to be an impact, which is where I get hung up sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like no solution where I'm not going to make a negative impact. There always will be, but it's just trying to limit the negative effects. But you do need to hold the government and companies accountable too. So you can hit the companies with buying products that you believe in and supporting companies that you believe in, and you can sign petitions, you can reach out to your local lawmakers, local government, you can go to climate marches, raise your voice. Like, they work for us. We have to remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually just switched banks because I heard Chase Bank was vested in big oil companies.
Yeah, I have Chase, and I've been trying to figure out who to go to as well. Who did you choose?
First Bank. So it was actually kind of like, I had First Bank, I went to Chase Bank, I went back to First Bank.
Okay.
So I wasn't like completely already like switched over, but I was like, okay, never mind, I'm not switching over to Chase.
Yeah. Okay, I see.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the climate marches you've been a part of, because I know that that's something that you've spent some time doing, right?
Right. The first one I went to was back in September. You know, Greta Thunberg organized the global marches, which was really inspiring. And I actually went to two in one day. One, I skipped school, went to Salida, which is the closest relatively big town to Gunnison. And it was really cool. When we were there, we were standing on the side of the road with the signs we had painted, and me and my roommate went together. We were the youngest ones there, so that was really nice to be around an older crowd that was so passionate about it, because the general idea is that older generations don't have as much of a stake in this issue. But they were all older generation people supporting the environment, so that was great. We were just holding our signs on the side of the road, and some people would give us thumbs up and honk. Some people would rev their engines so their smoke would get on us. They would flip us off, curse at us. So it was really interesting, and although there were some negative feedback, that made me happy to be out there, because it just shows that we are making some sort of a difference and getting that idea into people's minds that might not agree. If everyone agreed, then there wouldn't be a purpose to be there, you know?
Right, yeah. It is so interesting. I don't know what the political leanings are in that part of Colorado. I know in Colorado Springs it's obviously pretty conservative, so I went to the climate march here, and it was the same thing. Like, some people would be honking and like cheering us on.
Yeah.
And then there were other people revving their engines. There was one person that turned on their car's emergency buzzer sound, so it was just constantly looped in the background.
Trying to drown you out.
Yeah, trying to drown us out, essentially. So it's interesting, but it was also very nice to see a city with such a conservative environment to have that many people show up for something like that.
Yeah, I would say in the places that I partook in the strikes at, it was also probably more conservative, especially because it's in a more rural community, and that tends to be how it is. When I went back to school and then did the march later that evening in Gunnison, a lot of college students were there and a lot of younger children were there. And we actually, like, marched through the streets. Like, it's not a big town, but cars still couldn't get past us, you know, so that was pretty cool. And then I ended up started chanting, because I didn't want to just walk through the streets. I want people to hear us, like, come out of your houses, join us. And so that was really, really, really special to be a part of. And we marched all through town, all through the streets, onto campus, and then we stood on the steps of one of our halls at the school, and we all gave a speech if we chose to. And then we went into a conference that we hold every year called the Headwaters Conference, and we actually had Joel Clement is his name, and he was one of the whistleblowers on President Trump, and called him out for trying to hide scientific data. And he spoke that night, so that was really interesting. So that would make me think that, Gunnison's a really liberal area, but that's just on the campus. And I think a lot of campuses tend to be that way. We still live in a conservative community. So that was really awesome to be a part of, too, within that community. And then the other strike that I went to, it wasn't the same as those. It was later on, and it was actually in Denver. And Greta Thunberg was there giving speeches, and a lot of Indigenous women were there speaking too, and they were talking a lot about ecofeminism and standing up for all the missing Indigenous women and Indigenous peoples. And I learned a lot, and there's definitely more things that I want to research about that just to be more aware. But I cried. I cried, just the power that was there. All the people there were there, helicopters flying above, like filming it. So many newscasters there filming it. It was really made me realize that we're a part of history right now, and that this will be written in books, and people are going to be looking at what we're doing right now, and it was really empowering.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. I wish I could have gone to that one.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Let's talk about fast fashion. Not a lot of people are aware of the massive environmental impact it has. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, first and foremost, I love clothes. I've always valued the way that clothes make me feel when I wear them. If you look good, you feel good. But the more I've learned about fast fashion, the more I realize that I can't support it. Places like Forever 21, H&M, which would usually be like my go-to places to get some cute clothes. I can't do that anymore. Fast fashion is bad for the environment because they have a lot of microplastics in the actual fabric, like polyester. If you see that on your tags, that's a fabric made from plastic. And the reason why they're so affordable is because they're made so cheaply, and they're taking advantage of, what would you say? They're taking advantage of people that they're not paying very well, like cents an hour. And so when you're washing those super cheap clothes, microplastics get released into the water system through your washing machine. So that's why it's bad for the environment. But also it's bad for people. Think about all those people that are making those clothes, working in those sweatshop type environments. If you're a humanitarian, you don't really want to support that, right? But luckily, we have a lot of great thrift stores in Colorado Springs and in lots of other places. But I like the Ark the most. Again, this is not an ad. I have probably 80% of my clothing from there, and it's always the clothing people are like, oh my gosh, that outfit's so cute, where did you get it? It's always from the Ark. No one ever compliments my clothing from Forever 21. Like, no one cares. And Ark is really great, too, because it does support families with disabilities. And so if you round up your total, then that extra cents will get put into a fund that helps people with disabilities, like pay for hospital bills. And my baby brother has actually received support from them. So there's more than one reason that I support the Ark.
I love the Ark.
I know.
It's one of my favorite places to shop.
Very well organized.
Yeah. Thrift more.
Yeah, and it's fun.
I could say anything, thrift more.
Yeah, you can find such unique stuff, make it your own, and even if it doesn't fit you perfectly, it's pretty cheap to get it tailored to your body. So it's like, it's made for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's really one of my favorite sustainable solutions.
Yes.
Because I love clothes too. But
I'm going soon.
Yeah. Yes, I love thrifting. I love it. Okay, so I actually wanted to touch back on environmental feminism, because that's actually a term I've never heard before.
Okay. The first time I heard about environmental feminism, I heard about it in my environmental ethics class, and we were talking a lot about how women and the environment are put on the same plane, and often it's not talked about very positively. Like, you might say rape the earth, or you might refer to women as a bitch, and it's just talking about that negative connotation that is associated with women and the environment. And a lot of the environmental feminism now is with a strong female forward generation that we have now, and just really being able to stick up for ourselves and not let people take advantage of us. But people have also taken advantage of the earth. So that's where you can pull out the common thread. And I definitely could learn more about it. I'm not as well versed on all of that, but that is the basis.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I just had never heard of that before, so it's kind of interesting. I think people don't realize how much environmentalism kind of connects with other issues.
It's the basis of everything.
Yeah, it's so interconnected.
Our health, directly affected by the environment. Like we always say in my field that environmental justice is the same as social justice, and you can see that a lot in minority communities, a lot with redlining, about how people of color their housing will be very close to, like, maybe a coal factory, and their water's polluted. They're growing up with lead-contaminated water and things like that. So
it's all connected.
It is connected. It definitely is. Every single thing we do, I mean, everything we get is from the earth. Mm-hmm. And you really can't get away from that.
Yeah. So whenever we make wise environmental decisions, it's not just affecting us or the planet. It's affecting the people that live on this planet as well. And that sounds so obvious, but it's true that a lot of social justice issues are so intertwined with environmentalism.
Definitely. And we all might be in our own locations, but there's ripple effects, especially because our world is so globalized. Like me buying that super cheap $5 shirt from Walmart. Who made that shirt? Where was the cotton grown? What kind of pesticides were used on it? How did that affect the soil? Can you even grow there anymore because of that? How did that affect waterways? How is that polluting the air that we breathe? It's so multifaceted. There's so many layers to think about that it can be overwhelming sometimes. But that's just why you have to educate yourself the best you can and just try to make the best decision that you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is so overwhelming being in this field of study, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. So how do you take time for yourself to just decompress and not let it bog you down?
Well, there's still so much to celebrate in the world. And if I do feel overwhelmed, I try not to focus on all the negatives and try not to obsess over every single decision that I make and what the impact is, because I do that every single day. But maybe I'll just take a walk outside. And I am super, super spoiled to be living in Colorado, where we do have a relatively healthy environment, especially in comparison to some other places. So living in Gunnison, I can go outside and be thankful for the sunshine, or be thankful for the snow, or go down by the river and just breathe in fresh air. That is such a privilege. And just be thankful for the things that we do have now, and just connect back to the reason why I am devoting my life to this and devoting myself to this.
Yeah, so important to just take time for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is overwhelming sometimes.
Definitely.
What are the things you talked about as far as finding connection to the environment in urban environments?
So with the connection to the environment within urban settings, a lot of it is talking about like the green spaces. And some cities don't have as much green space as others, but I was learning about in Chicago, like people going to Eden Place, which is a garden started by a man named Michael Howard. And him and his wife are such an inspiration. They actually had this land that was next to a train track, and it was so polluted with lead, and he found out that his community was poisoned with lead, and all the kids in his community were getting lower test averages than everybody else. And so he ripped up all this land, and the city had to bring in new dirt for him, and they actually started a garden there right beside the train tracks, and people can come in and learn about that and connect with nature, because they hadn't been in what we might perceive as a wild place. But we also have to remember that we are part of nature. We're not a part of it. Like, our buildings can also be home for birds, squirrels, that types of thing. There's still raccoons living off our trash. Like, it seems kind of unfortunate, but we all still intertwine together, and it's interesting to look at the city as part of our environment too. It's just an environment that we have built for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. I've heard of initiatives to kind of make cities a little bit more wildlife friendly. Have you heard anything about that? Incorporating ways to protect urban animals?
I guess I haven't heard so much about that. Really, the things that I've been hearing about but still don't know too much about are like percolating sidewalks that can allow the water to flow through it instead of just repelling it like concrete does. Green roofs to take advantage of rainwater and grow more food, or just grow more plants. Mm-hmm. So that's more of what I'm familiar with.
Yeah. That is something interesting to kind of ponder, and I think it'll be especially important moving forward with environmentalism, like incorporating our urban areas in this movement as well.
Yeah.
So what do you incorporate in your daily life to love the planet?
Well, I have changed the way that I eat. I eat a lot less red meat. Growing up, my family could eat red meat every single day if it were up to them, but cows do have a strong environmental impact. They take a lot of water. They produce greenhouse gases. Those are just like two very simple examples. There's more, but so I've really cut down on my red meat consumption. And in some places, it makes more sense to eat red meat. But also, we live in a landlocked state. I'm not going to be eating seafood every week. That has a huge environmental impact. So I also try to stay away from as much seafood as possible. I try to eat, maybe trout that is in the rivers here in Colorado. I can eat that fish if I really want fish. I've also switched to oat milk because out of all the dairy options, it has the least environmental impact, especially when it comes to water. I also carry a water bottle, a reusable water bottle, every single place I go. It saves me so much money. It's a one-time investment, and you can get water at a gas station, at a library, at a restaurant. Like, you can get free water everywhere that is filtered. And a lot of the times, that water is just as good, if not better, than the water you're getting in a plastic water bottle. This is something I'm trying to get better at, unplugging electronics when they're not in use, especially my phone charger. That's something I'm so guilty of, just keeping it in the wall until I need it again. But I've started unplugging that. And every day I don't do it because I forget or I'm in a rush, but it's a constant thing that I'm trying to keep up with. And resisting that urge to go for fast fashion because the clothes are so cute. But if I have that urge, I'll go to a thrift store. What else? I'm constantly posting things on social media, like trying to raise awareness because there's a huge gap in understanding and education when it comes to a lot of the crises that we're facing with the environment. So I try to follow different accounts, even accounts that I might not actually agree with, but just to challenge my mindset a little bit and look into things and research it. So I actually do get down to the truth of something, not just where my background leads me to, where my biases lead me to. And I also always use reusable grocery bags. So those are just tiny things, and I'm sure I do more because every decision I make revolves around my impact. But to anybody listening, just know that you're never going to be perfect, and there are going to be times when you're like, oh my gosh, I really do want that steak, or oh my gosh, I forgot to unplug my charger today. It's okay. We're not perfect. You're making the decision to try to make a difference, and that's a huge step, you know?
Yeah, totally. Do you have anything else that you would like to say to anybody starting out in environmentalism, kind of making those first steps?
If you're overwhelmed with all the bad news, just know that there's a lot of people working on many facets of this issue to try to make the world a healthier place for us in the future. And there are a lot of success stories. They just might not be as well broadcasted because people love sob stories. So don't give up. This is all we can do. All you can do is just keep moving forward. And you might get beat down some days, and it might be so scary that you're having a panic attack. I totally get it. But just realize that there's still so much hope and so much to live for in this world, and we're still so lucky to be here. And just keep going. Just keep educating yourself and spreading that knowledge.
Yeah. Well said. All right. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me and just talking with me about this. You're very informed, and I appreciate just learning a little bit more in this little bit of time that we got to chat. So before we go, do you have anything that you'd like to shout out? Whether it be yourself or a local company or anything like that?
There's great local companies. Conscious Living, it's a bring your own bottle shop where you can restock on a bunch of household essentials like cleaners, conditioners, toothpaste even, which was really cool. I still love the Rocky Mountain Soap Shop downtown. They do a lot of reusable containers where you get discounts when you bring them back. Pikes Peak Lemonade, they're great. But also I just want to give a shout out to the people who have guided me along the way, especially my Ta Epi, rest in peace, and my family for all their support, and Mother Earth herself for giving us this gift of life.
Yes, snaps to Mother Nature. We love her. Thanks for listening to Stories from Planet Earth. Be sure to find us on Instagram at SFPE Podcast and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. I hope you'll tune in again next week.